Hi there. My name's Kevin Chambers. I'm the creator of RideSheet, and I want to talk to you today about one of the corners of RideSheet, which is tracking of vehicles, drivers, and services. So, obviously, in order to use RideSheet effectively to track the services of a small demand responsive transportation organization, you need to track a lot of different things. You can see here on screen that we have a customers tab, there's a trips tab, there's runs, but we also need to be knowing about vehicles, drivers, and services. And I want to go through these three data areas in a little bit of detail, just so you get a sense for how this data is being tracked and then how it's being used in other parts of the system. So here we have the vehicles screen, and you'll notice the first tab is the ID tab. So this is where you would put in a short name. This will be used later. This is what you'll actually be seeing in trips and runs. It's nice to keep it short, simple, but yet it needs to be unique. And then here's where you can have a longer name. This could be something like perhaps the driver's license, perhaps a VIN, or other things. And then this is where you would track where the vehicle is garaged. This is necessary for tracking non-revenue miles. We need to know where the vehicle is pulling out from at the beginning of the day and where the vehicle is going back to at the end of the day. And we use that for some of the calculations that we apply for reporting in RideSheet. And then here's some other things that are useful to have in the system. If we're ever sharing this data outside of RideSheet, it's nice to have this here. Seating capacity for ambulatory people, people using wheelchairs, people using scooters, whether the vehicle has a ramp or a lift. And then here's some housekeeping information about whether the vehicle is still in use. There's the end date and when the vehicle was started to be in use. So that's vehicles. Let's take a look at drivers. And with drivers, you'll see a similar pattern here, that the first column is really about just having a unique ID. Here we're just using the driver's initials. And then we have the full driver name next over, driver email, which is handy for communication. And if there's a default vehicle that a driver uses, you can enter that here. And then again, some housekeeping information when that driver started, and if they're no longer driving anymore, what their end date would be. Now, lastly, we have services. So services are really connected to funding sources or other things that you need to distinguish in your reporting or operations. Just as example data, here we have state funding, county funding, Veterans Administration funding, and each one of these you assign a service ID. You can give it a long name here, and again, start date and end date. And this completes the three data areas I was talking about. Now, let's go look at where these are used as we're creating trips and runs. So in trips, when you are creating a trip, each trip, as it's assigned to be provided, needs to have a driver ID and a vehicle ID. And this is where these drop downs come in handy. You can see here that for each record, you need to pick who it is. And here, these initials that we saw from the driver sheet show up, and this short name here from the vehicle ID shows up here. Likewise, over here, there's a service ID for each trip, and this is where that would show up. And over here in customers, each customer can have a default service ID. So if normally their ride is provided by the VA, for example, you could enter that here, and then that would show up by default every time you create a trip for that rider. So that's a first look at vehicles, drivers, and services. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.